Khalil Mack is now officially a Charger with the new league year opening on Wednesday, and we got to hear him at his first press conference. And we also got to hear from Brandon Staley and his thoughts about his new star edge rusher and what Tom Telesco loved so much before he pulled off that big trade. And we're getting into all those thoughts on today's Locked On Chargers podcast.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers for over 6 seasons, but we're heading into our 5th as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. What's up, guys? Thank you for making us your first listen. And before we get into everything, I do want to apologize because I know we teased the director on today's show, the YouTube sensation, and obviously a huge presence on Twitter at Kiwi Filmmaker. We lost the video for the first time ever. The platform we used to record did not save the video, so we are currently trying to retrieve that, and we should have it for you guys next week if we're able to do that. If not, we will reschedule with him because he was awesome. You guys really missed out. I don't need to tell you. But thank you guys for checking us out anyways, and make sure to never miss the show by subscribing to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and also following the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. But David, Khalil Mack did speak at a presser on Wednesday, so at least we have something to talk about and talked about what's exciting about joining Brandon Staley again. And also we get to hear from Brandon Staley, who gave a couple of key quotes about what he thought about Khalil Mack and specifically how much gas he has left in the tank. And Tom Telesco spoke with a radio show on Wednesday as well, talking about not only the Khalil Mack trade, but also the J.C. Jackson signing and just exactly why they wanted to pull off that big move. And then at the end of the show, we're beginning into the AFC West arms race and what the rest of the AFC West has been doing. The Broncos getting Randy Gregory, Russell Wilson, some other good pieces, and the Raiders pulling off a big move on Wednesday by signing Chandler Jones and what that means for the Chargers right tackle situation. But let's get to this Khalil Mack press conference, David. We finally got to see it, and that's like one of the great things about Wednesday. It means nobody's going back on their deal, right? Nobody's pulling a Randy Gregory 1 second on the Cowboys, 1 second on the Broncos. There's no Anthony Barr situation. There's no J.D. McKissick situation. So we've been celebrating all week, but at least now we get to officially celebrate. All of these dudes are officially on the Chargers.
Yeah, thank goodness, right? And I mean, how embarrassing is that for those situations, for those players to agree to terms on contracts and then just to, renege on that and completely change their mind and go to another team or go back to their previous team. That didn't happen with the Chargers, thank God. And I mean, I think that a large part of that is Brandon Staley, Tom Telesco, and the crop of talent that the Chargers have on both sides of the ball. I think the Chargers are a destination where players want to play. They know that their chances of winning football games is very high with the collection of talent that is obvious in LA.
I know. Can you imagine? It's like, actually, Khalil Mack didn't pass the physical, right? Or J.C. Jackson decided to go back to the Patriots in another diabolical Bill Belichick move type of situation, right? But Khalil Mack did speak at his press conference, and like a lot of NFL press conferences, you kind of have to sift through and find the interesting parts about it. But I think one of the most important things was just him opening up about his health, if you could say that much. He said he's 100%, he's good. Whatever you want to hear, David, Khalil Mack is fully ready to go.
And that is what I want to hear. I want to hear that he is 100% confident that he is ready to go, that there is no restrictions on the foot. Obviously, that had to be something that they talked about and went in depth about the medicals to make sure that he was going to come back and be that same Khalil Mack,
of course,
that we've seen throughout his tenure in his career in the NFL, which has been a dominant, destructive force. No matter what you're asking him to do, you're asking him to stop the run. He's doing that at an elite level. You want him to get after the passer. He's also doing that at an elite level. He is an elite player when everything is right. And, he's not an injury-prone player. He's only missed 2 games before the injury that he suffered this season. So Khalil Mack is an absolute monster. And I think the one thing that I really enjoyed the most about this press conference was just his predisposition, Daniel. You can tell that he is absolutely hungry to get out there and show everyone that Khalil Mack is still Khalil Mack.
Yeah, and he talked about the narrative around him. He says, you turn on the TV, you hear what they're saying. It's like, okay, bet. You know what I mean? I'll bet on myself. Any day. And I think as far as the foot goes, I think one of the things that makes you feel so much better about it, and obviously I'll knock on wood here, is just how much
Yes.
improved the Chargers' strength and conditioning resources were last year, right? And their
Amen.
staff was. And obviously there's the Brian Bulaga situation, but that one almost just seems like a ticking time bomb. But they kept their stars on the field, obviously, knock on wood. But it
Yes.
makes you feel better that you could see him return to that dominance. And he doesn't really need to go very far, because even the last time we saw him playing on the field, he was crazy. I mean, 6 sacks in 7 games last season before he ended up getting season-ending foot surgery. But that makes you feel good about it. And obviously, you know what he opens up. But I do think the other part of it, just as far as guys not wanting to leave the Chargers, right, or to renege on their deals, as you put it. But I think part of that is the Brandon Staley culture. And he was asked
Yeah.
about rejoining Staley, and he said it was weird to hear, but understanding that the team and the coach, having the relationship with Coach Staley and knowing his mindset and his passion for the game, it kind of went bittersweet to excited, knowing who I'm dealing with and the type of man he is first and foremost, and how much he truly loves the game of football. You can feel that whenever you speak to him. And I think that is just something that we've heard, not just from, current players, but we've heard it from former players. And I do think it is something that's helped them in free agency so far, is being that destination that you're talking about, but also having that coach who has his fingerprints all over this organization now. And you're seeing that guys do actually want to come play for this man.
They love Brandon Staley. I mean, I don't think I have ever heard a single person utter a foul or negative comment of any kind. They all speak the same way. They all say he is genuine. They all say he is incredibly intelligent. They all say he is a wonderful person to be around. And they always talk about the man before they talk about the football coach. And I think that's so important. And that's the culture that he's bringing to this Chargers organization. I think,
Yeah.
it's something that's much more personable. It's someone who, you feel like you can relate to. Just, if you're a fan or a regular person, Brandon Staley is a guy that you feel like, this is a guy that I like to be around, regardless of his status as a coach. And I think that's what's been so valuable about what he has brought to the table with the Chargers, is that, and obviously the incredible, brilliant mind that he brings to the table. Khalil Mack is obviously very impressed and very happy that he has somebody that he knows and is very comfortable with Brandon Staley.
Yeah, I mean, you could see how highly he thought of Brandon Staley just as the way he was talking about him, just with all of his body language and stuff. And he just credited him a bunch with what he was able to do in Chicago when Khalil Mack had to learn that entire playbook in 5 days, as he put it, which is just sounds insane to have to do. And I just think that that's just another player kind of proving that Brandon Staley is that player's coach, and another player who Brandon Staley already knows how to use. I mean, when he was talking about Joey Bosa when he first arrived, it was just like, hey, Joey Bosa is the Khalil Mack kind of our defense, right? Now you have both of those dudes on the same defensive line. It was also interesting to hear what he said about Gift Smith, and Jay Rogers, because he said that he's going to be working with both of them, right? He said it was going to be a mix, but it also kind of made it seem like he was going to be working more with Gift Smith, who was actually with the defensive line, not the edge rushers last year. So that'll be interesting to see how those groups mix, because I know Gift Smith was obviously one of Joey Bosa's favorite coaches, and I'm excited to see how that works out. But we did get to hear from Brandon Staley as well, and what he had to say about Khalil Mack, specifically about all those who dare to doubt Khalil Mack. And we got to hear from Tom Telesco as well, kind of hidden on Sirius Radio, but he did have some glowing things to say about Khalil Mack and also JC Jackson. So we'll get into those comments before we get into the arms race in the AFC West. I mean, it's just been getting absolutely nutty over there. But if you guys want to get nutty, March Madness is here, and you guys have the tournament today, starting with games literally all day. It's the best day to bet, and the only place I bet with is at betonline.net, because they have the best. Honestly, I think they have the most creative and unique bets that you can find anywhere, but they have the best odds, lines, and props that you're going to find on any betting website. And with betonline.net, it is your number one place for all college hoops action. So make sure you guys are getting in on that, because the one thing that makes you really care about a 16 seed is if you're betting on them to win against a 1 seed, right? And you got a lot of money riding on it. So make sure you guys get in with betonline.net, and the most exciting time of the year to bet, especially during these games. I'm excited. I'm going to be so drained after this weekend watching all of these college basketball games, and it's going to be so much fun betting with betonline.net. But it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action at BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, David. Well, we didn't actually get to see the video, but there were some reporters who pulled some quotes from Brandon Staley, who actually had some really interesting things to say, probably more interesting than Khalil Mack, obviously. And he did it in just a couple of kind of quotes that we saw. But he was talking about Khalil Mack, and he said, "I'm excited for him to be around our team and to build a team with him on the roster. It was an amazing year in Chicago, but that didn't last long enough. To be able to do it again is very special. I'm excited about it for sure." And that was cool to kind of hear him because how highly he thinks of this player, David. I mean, obviously, he's one of the guys that makes Brandon Staley feel like he can build the defense he had with like the Rams, right? Or with what the Bears had with Vic Fangio when he was the Bears coach and that dominant defense he had over there. And he also said the cost was very minimum for a player of his caliber. I think it was excellent. We know everything about this guy, and he's what he's bringing to your team, and vice versa. And that's also something that's been a sentiment as well, is just helping you make this trade was a lot of it because the guy you're getting, how he fits and all of those things.
Well, to have that intimate knowledge of who he is and what he does on a daily basis, I think makes the decision makers who are trying to consummate this trade a lot more comfortable because, whenever you're trying to make any kind of deal, information is your friend. You want all the information that you can get so you can make an informed decision. So having, a former position coach who was with you every single day and saw the incredible things that you were able to do on a day in and day out basis. And of course, what you were able to do as a defensive player of the year, a 3-time All-Pro. I mean, his accolades obviously are a mile long. So Khalil Mack and that great relationship that was formulated with Brandon Staley, there's no other way to put it, but this is the reason why this trade was made. That relationship between those two guys is the reason why Khalil Mack is a Charger right now.
Well, and it was very inexpensive to get that caliber of player. I mean, when we were talking with the director, he was like, I thought it was a first for sure. I thought it was a first for sure when it first came out before the actual, trade.
And I didn't care.
Yeah, no, and we were totally cool with it. But what Staley also said is he brings playmaking ability and a style of play that we believe in. I don't think we had enough of that last year, not even close. He's a dominant, complete defender. And it was interesting hearing kind of Brandon Staley roasting his own guys from last year. But that's what the Brandon Staley's kind of been about, right? I mean, out in with the new, out with the old kind of thing. He's let guys go. He's brought in new players that have performed extremely well, at least, going into season 2. And now we have a lot of reason to feel excited about it. And Brandon Staley was also talking about, the narrative behind Khalil Mack, maybe being a little washed, maybe being, in a decline. And this is what he had to say. People are saying that, then they certainly don't know him at all. And if they are saying that, then good luck to them, because you'll see. That's not something I would want to hear if I was in the rest of the AFC West.
Not at all. That's what I was saying earlier, is just, I think it just goes along with how Khalil Mack was answering those type of questions.
Chip on his shoulder.
He's like, hey, you want to doubt me? You want to doubt me? And then Brandon Staley's like, you want to doubt Khalil Mack? Like, are you for real right now? Like, are you thinking straight?
They both,
yeah, exactly. They both feel that same way. So it just makes you really excited for what these guys are going to do now that they have more years in the NFL. And Brandon Staley has more years as a coach, has more knowledge, gets to, add with his staff who's in place, the guys that he knows, the coaches that he brought in to really try to maximize and get the absolute most out of Khalil Mack. I mean, having a guy of this quality, of this caliber with, the relationship you had before is only going to mean great things as long as he's able to stay on the field. He never had an issue with it before. If he's healthy, Khalil Mack is going to be a force. And Brandon Staley is obviously very excited to show everyone that Khalil Mack is still that beast.
And I wouldn't want to be the first quarterback that he hits, right? Because he's just bringing down to the hammer on whoever that poor soul is. And I can't wait to see it. But, I mean, it might even be a penalty. I don't even know if I'm going to care. Like, in the ball in his hands, it just gets hit so hard that they just throw a flag because they feel bad about it. But we also got to hear Tom Telesco talk about his new additions in an interview with Sirius XM NFL, where, not everyone has XM, right? Radio. I know I don't. So it was interesting to hear the comments from him that we were able to scour through and find. And what he did say about Khalil Mack specifically was, we think as we lined up last year, but Joey Bosa had a great year for us, but he sees a lot of chips and double chips in triple chips, a lot of attention coming his way. So I think adding another pass rusher on the other side, like Bill Polian would know when they had Mathis and Freeney in Indianapolis, there's only so many people you can double. So I think it's going to help to both players, but Khalil is also very good against the run. David, I mean, it does show you that they're really the philosophy there is kind of exactly what we thought. We knew they needed another threat on the opposite side of Joey Bosa, and now it's kind of like what you said when they first got him, right? Pick your poison.
Yes, absolutely. And I think this is going to help both players so much because they're going to get so many more one-on-one opportunities. You're not going to double Joey Bosa when you have Khalil Mack on the other side. And
Right.
you would be wise not to do that and vice versa. So that's why these guys are, I mean, Joey Bosa, like I said, had to be the most excited person
Right.
in the world that Khalil Mack was going to be a Charger and he was going to be on the other side of him. And also, on one of those interviews, they were talking to Derwin James too, and they're like, "Hey, what you gonna do when you got Joey Bosa, when you got me, and you got Khalil Mack all
Right.
coming after the quarterback at the same time? That's really pick your poison. No matter what it is, you're gonna get hurt."
Yeah, I mean, maybe just hand the ball off if that's coming because I don't think you want to drop back to pass for that. But I think the other people who are obviously going to benefit the most from that are the interior defensive linemen, right? The
Yes.
Sebastian Joseph Day, even though he just came from playing, with Aaron Donald, obviously. But now he has two guys on the edge that command so much attention. I think it's going to open things up for him and Jerry Tillery and Austin Johnson to some extent as well.
Yeah.
But I think that's what's really exciting about it. And with Khalil Mack, having that kind of player on the edge opposite Joey Bosa, we've never actually seen it before, right? Even with
No.
the prime Melvin Ingram, we've never seen that, and I'm so excited to see it. But Telesco also talked about J.C. Jackson, and he said J.C. has the man cover skills we really covet with our cornerbacks, and not only does he have the man cover skills, but he has a great feel and ball skills to turn the ball over. I know everybody wants that. That's nothing new, but when the ball's in the air, he plays like a wide receiver. He's done it consistently in New England, and he was consistently durable in New England. And that was the other thing, David, is like one thing that we talked about Brandon Staley all last year, he kept bringing up is just like, we haven't had this defensive backfield on the field at the same time. It was like 43 snaps of Chris Harris Jr., right, with Michael Davis and Asante and Nazir and Derwin. That was like a terribly low number of snaps. Not only is this dude going to get the ball back to Justin Herbert more, and he might have been the second happiest outside of Joey Bosa, just thinking like, hey, I might not have to put up 30 points to win a game, right? I mean, I think that's what you think of when you see this, the durability there, the fact that he's always going to show up to games when that was such an issue last year, and also giving the ball back to that dude.
Well, and he also talked about the relationship that Derwin James had with J.C. Jackson too, and talked about his role in kind of recruiting J.C. Jackson to the Chargers. So having somebody that they knew and they already had, J.C. Jackson, very high on their list based off of those comments. They were, very, very excited to bring him in. And the deal that they got him on too, I think, that's absolutely unbelievable. You think about 16.5 million when this is a guy that was targeted to make 20 plus million per season and probably
Yeah.
would have earned it at that point. But I mean, bringing in a caliber of player, obviously Tom Telesco was very excited to get him, understands his value, understands what he's bringing to the table, and also wanted to make sure that he got a player that was not only productive, but also durable as well. Because, hey, if you can't be on the football field, you can't help anybody. And J.C. Jackson has proven in his career that he is going to play and he is going to take the ball away. And the Chargers need both of those aspects in spades.
Absolutely. And as David Droegemeier said on the show 1,000 times, your best ability is availability, right? So you
That's
have to
right.
be on the field, and like, especially with the Chargers depth, that corner, as we're sitting here now, you need that dude to stay on the field because he's obviously the second best player in your secondary now behind Derwin James and your best corner by a country mile as we see it.
Absolutely.
So he just brings a different aspect than the other dudes do. You'd be losing a lot there. But and we do have to talk about why the Chargers are competing in this arms race and why they're going all in this season, because the rest of the AFC West is trying to keep up as well. And like, this division is going to be so nuts. Russell Wilson with the Broncos. I mean, even the Raiders making a big move with
Murderer's
Chandler
row,
Jones.
man.
Yeah, I mean, Lord help whoever the Chargers right tackle ends up being. And they desperately need one because of all the craziness going around, while Kansas City is kind of losing out so far in the offseason. So we're going to talk about that coming up next, because the one thing I do know is J.C. Jackson and Khalil Mack are going to be a big headache for the rest of the AFC West. But if you're trying to avoid a headache when something goes wrong with your car and you need a part, the only place to go is rockauto.com. You don't want to have to go try to find a chain storefront. Go up to the counter, talk to the dude just for him to ask you questions that you're not going to know the answer to, right? Go online, go to rockauto.com. In a few easy clicks, you will find the part that you need. I don't know a ton about cars, I'll be honest with you guys. And even I've used rockauto.com 3 times and got the part I needed every time. And I got the best price. Why spend 30, 50, even 100% more on any kind of part when you can get it much cheaper at rockauto.com and you're supporting a family-run business? Rockauto.com is the only place I go for my parts. And make sure you guys go to rockauto.com to find all the parts they have available for your car or truck and write Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com. All right, David. Well, now it's time to talk about the Wild Wild West. And of course, I'm talking about the AFC West. And I think last year you'd probably make the argument that the NFC West was the best division in football. And you have, the Cardinals and the 49ers and the Rams all making, the playoffs, and the Rams winning the Super Bowl, obviously. It feels like this year, the AFC West is obviously the best division in football. And it felt like that before free agency even opened up, right? Like that's just kind of the feeling, especially with Russell Wilson going to the Broncos. And let's start there, David, because that was something that I didn't expect to see. Obviously, that was a really great move for them because we know how bad their quarterback situation was. We saw it twice a year the last 6 years we've been covering the team. And they sent away a lot of draft picks, obviously. Worth it, in my mind, to get that dude. And they also signed Randy Gregory and DJ Jones, a defensive tackle I was really high on. So the Broncos are definitely trying to keep up, David. I've been impressed with what they've done so far in this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, what was the running joke here the last 10 years in this division, or whenever, Peyton Manning decided to hang it up, was who the hell is going to play quarterback for the Broncos? And they cycled, 15 different quarterbacks or whatever it is,
Joe
some
Flacco.
Ungodly number. Yeah. Yeah, right. Or whatever. I mean, any
or
number
no
of
more
other
Trevor
names.
Simeons, no more Paxton Lynches, no more Drew Locks, unfortunately. It's
Yes.
tough.
Yeah. Denver sends 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a 5th-round pick, Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, and Noah Fant, all to the Seahawks for a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson obviously is a monster, and, on that team where they have a very good defense, have had a very good defense for many years now, and have a crop of young wide receivers that they have signed to multi-year deals. This is definitely an up-and-coming team. There's no other way around it. But, the quarterback move is the biggest move here. Randy Gregory could be a sneaky move here. I think this is a player who has resurrected his career from, the issues he was dealing with in the beginning.
I'd still rather them have Randy Gregory, though, than Von Miller. Call me crazy.
All day.
Yeah.
I mean, Jesus Christ, look at that deal. 6 years, $120 million to the Bills. That is absolutely insane to me. DJ Jones, $10 million a year for him. I like the Chargers picks and the guys they brought in for the money that they signed him for. I think was a better value, but there's no way that you can talk about the Broncos without saying that they got incredibly better this offseason.
And just like the Chargers, they have some holes that they'll still have to figure out and get those things ironed out before the season because they're not a complete team at this point either. But they're right there, right? They're able to compete. They have a shot. And I think for, Broncos fans, that's all you can want. For Chargers fans, it just means that this division is just getting that much more competitive. And even when it wasn't Russell Wilson, you were still splitting games with them when it was Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock and Joe Flacco and Brett Rippon,
Yeah.
It never mattered before. Now it's going to be competitive. At least now you have a guy like Khalil Mack to chase him down, and you have a guy like J.C. Jackson to pick him up on the back end. But the Raiders, David, also made a big move on Wednesday. They took their big swing. They traded Yannick Ngakoue away for Rock Ya-Sin because they signed Chandler Jones to a giant deal. And it's just another move that just makes you look at the Chargers' right tackle position and makes you a little weary.
Oh man, does it ever? I mean, you had enough problems with Max Crosby with Storm Norton, and now you have to worry about him and Chandler Jones on this. Oh man, that's absolutely scary. Yannick Ngakoue is all right, but he's nowhere close to the player that Chandler Jones is. Chandler Jones is at a very, very next level. He is a future Hall of Famer in his own right. The kind of sack numbers he's put up is ridiculous. I mean, the genes in that family is absolutely
John Bones Jones.
insane. Yeah. I mean, just give me a smidgen of that, please. But I mean, yeah, they're way better. I mean, Max Crosby was a demon on his own. Now he has his own, partner in crime to really
Right.
take those double teams off of him. So, I mean, thank God for Rashawn Slater, right? Can we find another Rashawn Slater for the right side, please? The Chargers have to address the right side of their defensive line because the Raiders were already a problem, and they're an even bigger one now.
Well, and Tom Telesco, I mean, at least acknowledged that too when we heard him in that interview today. He was just saying, like, hey, we're just trying to keep up with what the rest of the AFC West is doing. It's like, hey, you started it, buddy, with Khalil Mack. Don't forget. I guess the Broncos started it with Russell Wilson, but
Yeah.
either way, Broncos and Raiders right now, they don't look like they're taking a step back. I mean, the Raiders did have to cut some players. I mean, that roster, I think, still has some pretty suspect holes on it. And it's still Derek Carr as quarterback. So, I mean, they're still going to have the worst quarterback in the division. I feel safe saying at this point. I still think Russell Wilson, even off of a down year, is better than Derek Carr, who has 130-plus touchdown season. But there's another team, David, and that is the perennial AFC West champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And every year we're like, okay, well, the Kansas City Chiefs can't really do anything because they have no cap space. But somehow they're going to end up making it work. And they haven't done anything so far. They did franchise tag Orlando Brown Jr., which made their salary cap situation a little stickier. They are restructuring Frank Clark's contract to give them a little bit more space. But really, the biggest move that they made so far is signing Justin Reed, the safety, to a 3-year deal, who's a fine player. I mean, it's no slide on Justin Reed here. But what it does mean, though, David, is it means that they're losing Tyrann Mathieu after already losing Charvarius Ward. So, I mean, that's a couple of really big pieces on a defense that played well down the stretch, but a defense that the Chargers still shredded both times they played it.
Oh, yeah, and now they have a lot more questions that they need to answer in that secondary, and they're losing a lot of leadership and a lot of playmaking ability, a lot of versatility with Tyrann Mathieu. You can put him all over the place, and I think that's definitely something that is going to be sorely missed. I mean, you can't compare these two players. I mean, like you said, Justin Reed is a fine player, but he's nowhere the stature of a Tyrann Mathieu. And losing Charvarius Ward, I think, is also a very, very big thing of note because he was a great tackler and he was honestly an underrated corner. I thought he played very, very well for the Chiefs, and they're going to have to replace that production. So I think if we're looking at the AFC West here, Daniel, and we're considering all the moves that each team has made, I think the Chiefs right now have gotten worse.
Yeah, I think it's easy to say that. I mean, because it's like they had Orlando Brand Jr. already, and that's one of the biggest moves that they've made. I know they have been looking into some receivers. I mean, they're definitely not done yet. I'm sure they're going to find a way to get under the cap, make a couple moves, get somebody on the cheap who wants to go ring chasing, right? Seems like it happens with them every year. They're still, the team to beat, in my opinion, until it happens. I mean, they've won the division so many times in a row. They've gone to the AFC Championship so many times in a row, and the Super Bowl a couple times in the last few years.
Yeah.
They are the team to beat, and like even with all their, the people that are leaving them, they've had terrible defenses before and been fine. I do think it is going to catch up to them to some extent anyways, and if you look at the games the Chargers played against the Chiefs, a couple of those guys can make a big difference with how close those games were. I mean, Justin Herbert against Patrick Mahomes is 1-2, and 2 of those games are overtime losses. One, he never got to touch the ball, and the other one, they lost on a 58-yard overtime field goal. Both the losses came in overtime, and also Justin Herbert beat them last year with some crazy late-game heroics. So that's going to be such a fun matchup for a long time, and this AFC West is just going to be so crazy. I'm looking forward to the crossovers.
Chock full of primetime games, Daniel.
I mean, you'd have to think, right? And I mean, it's just, there's definitely going to be a lot of AFC West trash talk. I mean, and the Raiders still somehow always seem to hang around, right? And so we'll see what happens with them. But I mean, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers, bangers, right? Just, it's going to be insane. I'm so excited to watch it. And hopefully the Chargers will make me feel a little bit better about it by what they do for the rest of free agency, filling in those big cracks, filling in some of those major holes before the draft. And they still have 10 draft picks. Yes, you heard that. 10 draft picks, even after trading away their second-round pick for Khalil Mack. So they'll have some chances, but how many of those players can be impact players? The one thing you hope is that these guys can still develop, that they can find some players that turn into players for them down the road that can help the depth situation for the Chargers. Because when you're spending the money on these top-tier players like they are, you need those cheap rookie contract dudes to come through, and they just haven't enough. They needed to start now, but that is going to do it for today's show, though. Tomorrow is Fan Mail Friday, so we hope you guys are back here with us today. We are sorry again about the interview that fell through, but we're hoping we can have that to you guys next week as well. And we appreciate your guys' patience on that. And we appreciate you guys making us your first listen today. If you guys need a second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL Draft so you can get updated by Eric Crocker and Ryan Tracy about some guys that maybe the Chargers should be going after in the 2022 NFL Draft. But to make sure you don't miss this show, subscribe to the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel. Follow the show for free on all platforms wherever you get your podcast from. And since it's Fan Friday tomorrow, hit us up on Twitter at LockedOnLAC. You can either tag the Twitter handle or you can tag me on Twitter at DanTalkSports or David Droegemeier on Twitter at DroTalkSD. We will get those questions on the show. We have a lot of good reactions to the big moves the Chargers have made over the last week and a half. I mean, really a week at this point. It's been a wild week, and we're recording the show at 2:30 a.m. in David's time. So we appreciate you guys bearing with us today, and call into the Locked On Chargers voicemail line as well to give us your question. Trying to keep it around 30, 45 seconds. You can hit that up at 323-524-7924. But thank you guys for joining us today. We're back with you guys tomorrow with Fan Mail Friday. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.